Hello, my name is Mark, and I thank you so much for coming by today. I want to jump right into this discussion about the Zen Art Supplies Black Tulip Watercolor paintbrushes, because for me, I'm always in search of the perfect paintbrush. I'm tired of spending a lot of money on brushes that either don't deliver or just don't last over time. So when I discovered this company, I said, okay, let me do a little research. Well, the co-founder, Ardat Casanova, she is one of those people who was a corporate person for years, and then after having kids, decided to devote her time and her interests into fine art. And so she was also tired of wasting time and wasting money on supplies that just didn't work. And so she and her partner decided to create their own line of art supplies, which is what you're seeing here. Now this brush set contains several brushes. It's got 5 brushes, which is amazing. And for the price range, it's like the $20 to $30 range. This is the kind of brush set that you can actually take a risk on, take a chance on, and not really feel badly about. If they don't work out, you don't feel like you broke the bank. And if they do work out, you feel like you scored. So we're going to take a look at there's 2 rounds. There's an 8 and 10 round. There's a flat brush, actually 2 flat brushes, an 8 and I think a 3/4. There's a rigger brush, which is the long, thin one. And then there's the ominous cat tongue, which I just love the name of the cat tongue anyway. So, but we'll take a look at all of these. And right now I'm just doing some basic testing. And for me, I should declare what is the perfect paintbrush, because that's kind of what this is all about. What am I looking for? What constitutes the perfect paintbrush? Well, every artist is different, and every artist has their own preference for paintbrushes. Some like a really firm, stiff paintbrush, some like a really bouncy paintbrush. It depends on what your style is and what you're looking for. For me, I'm looking for a general all-purpose paintbrush that I can turn to time and time and time again for either my commercial illustration work or my fine art work. And that's what we're going to get into later in the video. I'm going to do 2 different demonstrations. I'm going to do one illustration video, or one illustration demo, I should say, and then one fine art demo. And we'll just take a look at how these work. Now, first of all, one thing I noticed with all these brushes was that the shaft, the actual handle of the brush, is very strong. It's a wood handle. It's very strong and firm, and it feels very comfortable in my hand. I don't feel like it's going to bend or warp at any time. The ferrule, the metal part, feels very secure. It's very well glued on or fixed on, however they fix them on. And the bristles, the brush bristles, the hairs, they're synthetic brushes, which I really like. They feel very secure in that ferrule. I don't feel like they're going to be pulled out. I did do some pull tests and see if any stray hairs were coming out, and I didn't find one single hair that came out of any of these brushes. So that was actually a really good discovery for me. Now, just doing this demo, I can get a good feel for each brush and what each brush brings to the table. The flat brushes, they act exactly like flat brushes would. You get a straight kind of boxy look. The rounds, you get that sort of wet kind of rounded look. And the cat tongue and the rigger, they do exactly what they kind of you would expect them to do. The thing I like about these brushes right off the bat is I like the bounciness of the bristles. Now, what does that mean, the bounciness? It just means how well does it recover from laying down a wash or laying down some paint. Here you can see I'm just kind of pushing down hard, and does it recover well, or does it kind of flay out and spray? Do the hairs kind of spray apart or splay apart? Looking at the cat tongue, this is always, cat tongues, I don't like cat tongues that much. They're kind of a weird paintbrush for me to use. I understand why some people love them, and I don't share that exact excitement about them, but I do like having a couple in my sort of arsenal of paintbrushes, because they do have a value, that sort of Japanese style or Asian style, kind of just writing that character calligraphy. These are great for that. For me, I don't use it that much. I like the way you can trail off and so forth, but it's just not a brush that I use on a lot of occasions. Again, I do see the value, especially in fine art, and a lot of people love them. So let's take a quick coffee break, and we'll get into the demos right after this. So for the first demo, I want to use these brushes in a controlled environment where I'm using, just my Daniel Smith and Schmincke watercolors, and I want to color in this illustration. It's just a drawing I had done a while ago. And I want to see how these brushes hold up in a traditional illustration environment. So this will not be digitally enhanced. I'm not going to do anything to to change anything digitally. So this is going to be straight up illustration using pen and ink and watercolor on Canson watercolor paper. So it's a cold pressed paper, so it's going to be a little toothy on the paper, and see how these brushes hold up. Well, at first, I figure I'll use a round and I'll use the flat brush, but I started getting into it with the rigger, and once I started just diving in, these brushes felt very, very natural for me. This is just a kind of a one-off illustration, nothing fancy, but what I did like was I could use each of these brushes. I ended up using all 5 brushes in this demo just to see how they would kind of interact with this kind of an illustration. And I was really delighted to find out that these brushes, I could use any one of these brushes to complete this kind of an illustration. They all keep a very fine point. They're brand new during this illustration. The next illustration demo I do, the fine art one, I did that demo months later, so I'll get into that in a moment. But for this, these were brand new brushes, so they held their point very nicely, as I would expect from any new brush. But overall, they performed exactly like I expected them to. There was no surprises. There was nothing funky going on, nothing weird going on. What I did like was that these brushes hold a lot of water. Not as much as a natural hairbrush, but enough. So I was pleased with the illustration demo and how that worked. Now, I came back a few months later and I decided to do this review. I was going to publish this review with just the illustration, and I thought, you know what, let me put that aside and I'm going to do a fine art version as well. Because a lot of people are looking for fine art, or any kind of, whether you do plein air fine art or whether you do, still lifes or whatever. That's what a lot of people use their brushes for. And because I'm a commercial illustrator, I tend not to do so much fine art work in these videos and so forth. So I figure, let's give that demo as well. So what I'm trying to see here is how these brushes perform, especially after using them. I had used them for over a month or so, and I wanted to see how they performed and held up over time. I will say that these brushes held up remarkably well over time, having used them several times since. And I have no problem with the brushes becoming frayed or splaying out or whatever. They held together really well, especially because I take care of the brushes and I do clean them after about every 3rd or 4th use. So that's one of those things that I really highly recommend. And even they recommend that on the packaging, is just make sure you clean your brushes. And I'll get into that in a minute too. But what I love about these brushes the most is that they're very versatile, especially coming back to that bounciness. Now, especially this rigger. One thing I want from a rigger is I want to be able to just kind of tap and bounce and go in, and especially with fine art where it's, this is all instinctive and it's all emotionally based as far as what I'm doing and what I'm deciding to do. The commercial illustration work, it's very kind of methodical, and you're kind of just placing colors where they should go. With a fine art piece, you're relying on your instincts and your emotions and your communication, and trying to translate what you're seeing or what you're trying to visualize. I don't know if "invisualize" is a real word, but so the point is that I want to be able to just react with the brush and the paint on the paper and communicate what I'm feeling at that moment and what I'm seeing. So that was really a good surprise for me with these brushes. They allowed me to just work and not think about the brush. And that is a huge asset to a paintbrush, is when you don't have to think about it. When you're thinking about, oh my gosh, a hair came out and you got to pull it off, or why is this not staying together properly? Like a flat brush that has, many splits in the ferrule. You can see the hairs split. I don't want to think about my paintbrushes. I want to just use them and jump into them, and that's what these paintbrushes allow me to do. And for the price point that they are, I really can't argue that, this wasn't a great decision in purchasing, because I could use these for years and I'm sure they're going to be great. And if they start to just kind of fall apart a little bit on me, which they haven't, if they do, I can always go back and buy some more because they're not that expensive. So I really appreciate that. And that was one of the high points for me as far as using these brushes go. Now, as far as doing fine artwork, again, laying down wash after wash and being able to wash the paint off in the water, these perform exactly like you would expect any watercolor brush to do. And again, after using them for over a month or so, I was really surprised at how well they kept together. And so I think one of the key things for me is, again, making sure I wash my brushes and clean them properly, because that's going to keep, especially something like this cat's tongue where the point, you want that point to be sharp. And by using something like a master's brush cleaner, it's just going to help preserve these brushes. I like to preserve them. When I put them away, they've got that dried, when they dry, they have that really firm, kind of tough outer coating that you can wash off the next time you use. And so I want to maintain these brushes and just, keep these as long as I can. As long as I take care of them, they're going to last for a long time. And you can see here they are dried and they look great. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was a helpful video for you in this review. You might want to check out these products. Just check out their website. If you like this content, please subscribe. I have more stuff coming at you. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay healthy and God bless.